to move a little closer? There we go. Thank you for the funny expression. We can have a little extra light here. There we go.
Very nice.
All right, welcome to Easier Habits Live, where you have me, your business coach, and Meg, your communication coach, going through the actual business strategy sessions that we do in the morning. This is your chance as an entrepreneur to start the morning with other people who are working through similar questions, and you can join us every morning at 8 a.m. Central Time. And with no further ado, let's have Meg give us a communication tip.
Alrighty, so our communication tip for this morning is for native speakers of English in particular, but if you are speaking to a global audience, slow down. Okay, most people in their native language speak relatively quickly, and English has the kind of dual thing of we speak quickly as well as we kind of mumble, and so we just kind of talk like this, and it's like whatever, because people can understand, right? It doesn't matter. Okay, so that's too mumbly. You have to enunciate and speak more slowly, and this is not because English is this crazy hard language. It's because of the way that people learn languages. When people learn, you have distinct words, right? But when we speak in English, we move all of the words together. And so if you can slow down and enunciate, your non-native speakers will be able to understand you much better, as well as I think it generally makes for a more polished presentation, right? To not be rushing through things quite so much. So slow down and enunciate.
But I like rushing, and I listen to everything on 2 times speed.
I do too, but that's your native speaker, so you can do that. I can do that, right? So if you're doing something on YouTube, know that people can speed it up. But
they can also slow it down.
They can, but it sounds weird. It does not sound normal, right? So listening to things on 2 times speed, for me, sounds normal. And listening on regular speed is like, oh, hurts my soul. But making it go slower just doesn't have the same effect.
Yeah. It is interesting to be listening to everything on 2 times speed and then switch to have a music video playing. Because that is the one thing where timing is part of the whole package.
Yeah.
And so it sounds weird when you speed it up. But speech does kind of too. It sounds clipped. I'm just so used to listening to everything on 2 times speed.
Me too.
And speaking at 2 times speed.
Yes. Yeah, I tried to listen to his video at 2 times speed. I could only do it 1.75, I think, because you already speak pretty quickly. No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think I mentioned in a previous video having spaces.
Yes. Right?
If you don't put spaces in, which in videos, I don't worry about that as much because you can hit pause. But especially in conversations, or especially if you're going to give a talk live, if you are not putting breaks in, that essentially means you're not saying anything that actually requires people to process it.
Yeah. Or that allows people to process it.
Yeah. Or you're not allowing them that. But think about that next time you practice speaking, that if you're not planning your breaks in there, then you're essentially communicating that you have nothing worth processing.
Yep.
So, with that said, we want to work on, I don't know whether I was calling this VSL last week or whether that came out of my research at the end of the week, but we're working on our sales funnel, which involves video content. And, I have adapted actually my more general strategy from the looking at ads, and you find webinars and free PDFs, to specifically the video sales letter as one of the easiest tools to adopt in terms of a sales funnel. And I actually want to walk you through an example. This is from Skyline Social, and what they do is help people build video sales letters. And what I like about their whole sales funnel is it's pretty dang clean. So I'll walk you through a few steps. We're not going to watch everything, but there will be links where you can get the content and see this all for yourself and go through the full content. But I don't want to steal their content. So let's take a look here at the screen. All right, so they start, and you could start with an ad. I found them looking up how to do a VSL, and then they had a video. It was one of the it's interesting. This is one of the highest ranked when I looked how to create a high converting VSL on Google. It's not on YouTube, which is interesting that those, run by the same company, but the algorithm is different. So like it was the top video on the Google search, but not necessarily in a YouTube search for that. But it is how to create a high converting video sales letter. Again, link below. And then from this, you can be able to get all the links that I'm going to share here. And so what I'm going to call out is, again, it's like a home office. It's not a messy or cluttered home office, right? And so like you might make sure, take extra care to clean things up. You might notice that I have like my pirate candy bowl that was sitting on top of the shelf for several weeks is gone. Right. There's still a little bit of mess in that corner, but I would do an even more thorough job if I were, creating content specifically for my sales funnel. So it's a nice looking environment, but it's pretty casual. You could do this by just cleaning your office. The lighting is a little bit washed out. It's not amazing, etc. So, but this is like in vogue for videos where you don't have to like some people do, like rent fancy cars and fancy house. Yeah. Have you seen those ads? It's a little bit cringy actually, to me. And people don't relate to that. It was interesting to hear a sales expert talk about how when you're selling, it was a particular context. If you're selling income replacement, right? The thing you want to do, your avatar is like the least likely person to be successful. So that's like the single mom working 2 jobs or whatever. Like if she can find the time to replace her income using your strategy, then anyone can. And he was talking about that. So like actually approachable is hugely important in building your business, depending, right? Unless you're specifically here, let's see, I think that looks a little out of focus, but all right. But unless you're like specifically creating some kind of luxury brand, yes. Right? But if you're selling something that you want people to improve ordinary people's lives, then you want to look like an ordinary person. Yep. And so that's, here in the video.
I also love he's wearing a hoodie.
Yeah, exactly.
Hoodie and a gray t-shirt. Like, it's perfect.
Right? Like, really chill. I should do more t-shirt stuff.
Yeah. Button down.
I regularly wear button downs.
He does, it's true.
Although I put one on specifically for these videos because afterwards I will just take it off and do my workout. So it's slightly affected, but not really, because after my workout, I will put another one. I will put it back on. But yeah, being approachable. I'm not going to go through this whole video. You should check it out. But this video answers a very specific question, which is the 4 pieces of what goes into a VSL or video sales letter. And the concept of a video sales letter is you have at some point in your funnel, and we'll get to that, where other people were from their ads clicking through to like a webinar or PDF. You have a video sales letter, which is not the same thing. And he goes over what you cover specifically in a video sales letter. You cover 4 things. You cover a problem. You describe it in hopefully the language of your customers. So for instance, like the language you were hearing at conferences about what they wish they could do with English, etc.
But before that, introduction.
Introduction?
Yeah, that was his number 1 point, is you have your self-introduction, who you are, and then number 2 is the problem.
No, actually number 1, part 1 of VSL, big problem you solve.
Well, when he was speaking, he said introduction. I'm wrong.
No, see? So this is a video about VSLs. This is not a VSL.
Oh, okay.
So what he's doing, because like typically someone's going to get to your VSL somehow.
Got it.
Which means they've been introduced to you on some level, right?
That makes sense.
So yeah, we'll kind of get to that, but
sorry.
Yeah, this is very meta, so it's a little confusing. So this is not a VSL. This is content designed to drive you to his VSL.
There we go.
All right. So he introduces himself, which is not something you need to do if someone has already found you, right? And they're evaluating whether to buy from you. So what you do actually to build trust, and you can talk about yourself, but that's actually point 3 in his VSL. So like your first thing is to talk about your big problem that you solve, and so. you would talk about, actually, you should, one, pick a single problem too. And that's another thing is, I think that's implicit. He doesn't go hard into describing this, but like pick a single problem. So if you had to sell people on like one problem, what would you sell them on?
They've studied English for years, but still don't feel comfortable speaking it.
Comfortable speaking it for what? Yeah.
For work purposes still sounds kind of vague. Well, so I talk a lot again about telling your story. Right. So, having studied English, but still not being able to tell your own story. Yeah. Using English, I think that.
I would still put it like concrete, because like for the most part, a lot of people may not even recognize they need to tell their story. Okay. Right? They're gonna so problems might be you're not confident enough, or you're so nervous, you'd have to take their language, right? Yeah. Uncomfortable with English, however you want to put it. You're so uncomfortable with English that you are missing out on pitch opportunities or networking opportunities. Okay. That you don't connect with people at conventions. Mm-hmm. So like I would bring it back to that kind of specific thing. And I think I'm not gonna play all of it, because you can sign up and get their full content. I don't want to steal their content, but I may actually show this portion just at the very beginning of their video, because they absolutely do lead with the problem, no introduction, and they spell that out. So maybe we can revisit that, and that will be kind of a focus. So he talks about the problem. He talks about how you address alternative solutions to the problem. So not your solution, but like what things are they thinking about? And if you really nail the problem and the things they're thinking about, they will feel understood, and they will trust you, is one of the big points that he makes. So like, what are alternatives to, what are alternative solutions, or solutions that someone might use?
Watching a bunch of videos on YouTube, right. Getting textbooks. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many people use Rosetta Stone outside of the US, or Duolingo. Yeah. I feel like those are mostly for like English speakers.
That'd be a great place. Again, like this is a great place to do market research and ask your Japanese clients and friends, if they wanted to get better at English, what would they do? What options they think about? Yeah. So you want to,
it's a good market research question.
Yeah, exactly. Having those specifics would be great.
Yeah. Also, the other thing is just like staying the same.
Yes, doing nothing is one of the solutions. Like, this is what's going to happen. So you could go on right now, skipping calls or whatever, or not making those pitch appointments, or not going to the convention, because you're not going to get the type of contacts that you would like. Yeah. But that's one solution. Why? And then I guess the way he phrases, you present the alternative solutions, and then you present yours and why it's better. So you might not nitpick the individual solutions as you present them, but then you would say, all right, here's the optimal solution. So what is the optimal solution?
The optimal solution is me.
Essentially, yes.
But the optimal solution is to have personalized coaching, right? By someone who has a really deep understanding of the English language and all that it entails, as well as an understanding of their native language. Yeah. Right? And so, because I think that's another thing with the alternative solutions. A lot of people prefer, a native speaker, just whatever, without any specific linguistic experience in their native language, or they want someone that's their native language, but who may not necessarily know all the ins and outs of the target language. And so someone who, for the type of customer that I'm looking for, the clients that I'm looking for, native speaker who understands their target language, so that they can, really get into those things, but also who can provide personalized solutions. And so that's what I do.
Yeah. I would pull out of that as a bullet point that someone who understands what you're trying to say in your native language, but who can translate that into fluent, native English. So that's a piece of it, and that's specifically why they would be better than going to a random English coach. Like this is what sets you out from other English coaches. I think the other thing too would be the emphasis on English that meets your goals, i.e. being able to tell your story rather than perfect grammar, because you don't need perfect grammar to be successful in business.
Nope.
And so I think calling that out would be a huge, like, yes, we're going to improve your English, but that's not the thing holding you back in your business.
Yeah.
Like, it's being able to tell your story in English comfortably and understand other people.
Well, and doing it in a way that is somewhat enjoyable. Because so many people have these negative, like, associations with learning because of the way that the school systems work. You know, it's like, oh, you made a mistake, you're bad. I like to think that, you know, and I've heard this many times from my clients, that we have fun, right? We're laughing, we're talking, we are doing a lot of really interesting things. And so it doesn't feel like work. And I hope another, you know, kind of selling point from me is that this makes it part of your life rather than just another task to do.
You will get better at grammar, but by focusing on practice and being comfortable telling your story, you're going to make a lot more progress in business than having perfect grammar, because someone who speaks very precisely but feels very stiff and like they're reading off of a teleprompter or a memorized speech all the time is going to be less engaging than someone who's having fun telling their story.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're practicing with you. So, you know, that's an advantage of you versus other coaches. Why are you better than a video?
Because I can give you feedback. Oh my gosh. So, and this is one of the big problems is that people think they need to have so much input, which is important, but honestly, at the level that I'm, you know, working with, it actually is reversed. You need to be doing like 80% output, 20% input at that point. And you need output with feedback, because if you're doing, you know, false or, you know, making, you know, errors and mistakes or having difficulties, and then you don't have the feedback, then you don't know where to improve. You don't know how to get better.
Well, and like what to focus on, right? You might notice some grammatical changes, but one thing a coach is going to do is going to highlight, like, yeah, okay, whatever, that conjugation was a little bit off. But much more important to telling your business story is like that concept. Yes. I don't understand what you're trying to get at when you said this word or whatnot. So like that is the difference between someone who's coaching you towards your goals versus someone who's just correcting your grammar.
Yes.
And so, so those are the kinds of bullet points you're going to be putting in the why your solution is better. And what do you think the fourth one is?
Just a second.
You might remember it.
Call to action.
Call to action. Yes, you always need a call to action. So the fourth thing is like allow them to do a call to action. And this is something another video was putting very strongly, is that that what you want is not an automated sales funnel. What you want is for, especially if it's like a high ticket service or something, you want them to call you because you will be able to form a relationship with them that they'll trust a lot more than a random button on your website, but also that you'll be able to address their individual concerns. Yep. So like that is, I mean, if you're a service provider, you really have to be there on a sales call. Now, he goes over a video sales letter that's for like a general audience, and one of the FAQs he says is, do you have to be on camera? And he says, no, you absolutely do.
I know.
Right? And so like I
was thinking like, oh, I don't have to be on camera, but then I thought of it and I was like, no, I really do.
Yeah, me too. So, I mean, if you're selling like cool art or something like that, or who knows what, you know, like if you're selling a widget, either that or you're part of a business with a lot of different people, we're not selling your individual services, right? You might get an explainer video and you might explain that we have, you know, you might have like pictures of different coaches, and kind of suggest like, yeah, these are the types of coaches you might work with or whatever. But like if you are really selling your individual services, you want them to get to know you and trust you. Yeah. So you absolutely should be on camera to build that trust, which is like the one exception I think for what he said. But the brilliant thing, so the two really brilliant things about this video, three brilliant things, I think, the necessary things. So when I searched for how to create a VSL, I found how to create a high converting video sales letter or in parentheses VSL. So like his title was designed to answer the question that I specifically put in Google.
Yes.
Right? And so he created content that was answering questions that people are searching for, which is huge. And that's one of the tips actually gets into later in their VSL or free masterclass, which I thought was interesting. They do kind of have a free masterclass or webinar, not a 5 to 10 minute VSL, and I'll probably talk a little bit more about that later. But so it's findable, it's searchable, it's quality content, right? Yeah. That, I mean, none of these are entirely like, oh my goodness, I never would have conceived that's something you put in a VSL letter. But the benefit here is the simplicity, right? Oh, I only have to do those 4 things. It now makes this task a lot simpler for me, so I don't have to worry about X, Y, Z. So it's quality content. And then the third thing is not only does he give you a call to action, but it's how this works with the VSL. So he answered my literal question completely, how to make a VSL. But then he raises a new question, which is the VSL is part of a funnel. How do you make that funnel? And that's the masterclass. And that is perfect. So like that is a brilliant transition, right? Where it's like, actually, you don't just need a VSL. What you need is this whole product. And so you click through. One of the things that you'll get, and I will just show you briefly their funnel. Here is the landing page. So it is a headline. It is like kind of a sub-headline, their branding. There is first name and email form. So they're capturing your email before they deliver any masterclass video. That way you get someone's contact information and you can kind of reach out and follow up with them. And then like below that, they really only have 3 bullet points. And I guess they do have a link to our client case studies and results and success stories that is so light, I didn't even see that the first time. I just assumed that was like part of their footer or something like that. Very minimal, not a lot of room to move out. I think it's interesting that they didn't put the social proof here and they did click a link out of there. That was one of the things where it's like, well, either put it in the page or like leave it out, but why would you let them leave? I think I kind of have a question about that, but I'm sure they tested it, and this is one of the things that maybe it works for particular people. But you put in your video, and then you get you put in your email information, and then you get the masterclass. All right. And this, again, the thing I loved about each of these is all of these are very light. One, that's less work for you, right? You don't have to create fancy pages. In fact, you probably shouldn't. And what you have is, he breaks it down actually just 2 steps, right? Step 1, watch the free training. Step 2, like what you hear, let's talk. Now, one comment about this is sort of their actual VSL. What I find interesting about it is it's 40 minutes. It's not 5 to 10 minutes. And it is a masterclass, right? And I think one of the reasons why this is important or why this difference is because if you don't have one, start with 5 to 10 minutes. And I think that's why they're brilliant on selling the 5 to 10 minutes. As you evolve, you might get more and more content from your clients, customers, etc., and you might test out longer videos to see how they function. But the limiting it to 5 to 10 minutes is much more approachable for starting out. So it's a great way to sell people on it. And really, they don't even have the headline. The headline is in the video, the 5 steps to 10, 15, 30 or more predictable sales appointments each month with your ideal clients. Clearly, something you can also tell just by the framing of this is like a sales appointment. Like, you're not going to want 30 sales appointments to sell like a $5 widget. So he's clearly like, he has a target audience here, which is people with more high ticket sales, coaches like you, etc., where it's like, all right, how much would 10, 15 or 30 predictable sales appointments or what do you call it, consultations or free consultations or whatever, how much would that change your business?
I assume if I can get them to convert, a lot.
All right. Do you have an idea of like how many people that you talk to and like specifically who call you to talk about your services? How many of those people become clients?
I mean, over the last 5 years, out of all of the sales things that I've done, I think, and that's a lot, I think only 2 didn't.
Right. So, so like 30 might be more than you can handle, like might be full up, right?
Yeah.
You know, when you're hitting 10 or 15, you're probably maybe even, if you're selling like 95% of those, you might even with just 10 or 15 hit the point where you're starting to raise your rates.
Yeah.
So again, like these specific things speak to a specific audience that I'm sure they've done research and thought about. They're like, what about people who need to sell 1,000 things to make their business? We don't care about them. That's not who we're selling to. Like they don't need a VSL. Maybe they can get by with just Facebook ads and a cool store. So this is the video itself. I will not play the whole thing, but I would like to play just a bit of the
So in this video, I'm going to go through the 5 steps to getting 10, 15, 30 or more predictable sales appointments every single month with your ideal clients. So to get started, let's go through the real...
Just rereading that tagline, right? So like one header really does a lot of work on this page and there's not a lot of other copy.
Reason most businesses struggle to generate any leads or appointments. And let me know if this sounds like you. Let me know if you can relate to any of the following. Do you start each month wondering where that next client is going to come from? Do you hate the idea of having to chase leads to work with you? Wouldn't it be better if they chased you instead? And are you finding that the traditional ways of marketing, things like cold calling, relying on referrals, going to networking events and things like that, are no longer as effective as they used to be? Are you looking for something better? Have you tried paying for leads from a lead gen company, but all you got was shared leads or low quality?
This is so problem, alternative strategies, etc. And he'll go on. One, assuming the person behind Skyline Social was the person in the YouTube video, this is not him reading it. And his face isn't there. But again, what he's selling here is not actually coaching for a VSL. He sells a course and then offers personalized support for that. So he's structured his business in a way that he doesn't have to be the face of it, which if you're offering a service that isn't like primarily one-to-one talking with someone, then you can kind of do that. But did you see how he described the problem from his client's perspective?
Yes.
Do you wonder where your next client is coming from?
With the, does this sound
like
you?
you?
Like really trying to anchor it,
Right. And like maybe if you're not used to doing marketing, you're like, oh, I've seen that. Does that feel salesy? But it works. It's effective. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Some of these just simple phrases that you can use, like have steal as much as you can from them, like the 5 steps to, 10, 15, 30 client month. For you, what do you think a headline might be?
Going back to the very beginning, like what the overall thing is.
Right.
I'm trying to think how it's got to be a how-to. Yeah. The problem is I know that Japanese people are going to be searching for this in Japanese, not in English. Yeah. It's one of the biggest issues that a lot of Japanese people have when looking for good content online is that they're searching in Japanese, not English. So
yeah, get some help. I mean, that says a lot. Like you might need help from your Japanese friend making a Japanese sales funnel.
I'm thinking something like, 英語能力の自信をレベルアップ or something like that, which is basically like level up your confidence in speaking English. Is very much like a catchcopy tagline that you would have in Japanese. They're a little bit different from the ones that we do with these how-tos in English. They wouldn't say どうやって, they would just do like the phrase itself.
So, well, that's like people in general, right? Who want to level up to English, but your target is not everybody wants to level up to English.
See, and
so what's specific problem, right?
Okay.
Like how to do a business pitch in English.
Yes.
Or how to network in English. And you might need to go back to your audience and ask them like, hey, how would you search for this thing?
Yeah. I think I might have to do that, but I like the idea of how to do a business pitch in English. As well as I think what would be good is how to start networking conversations. It's something we've talked about a little bit these last couple of weeks, and it's that idea of, sometimes just getting into the conversation is really hard. So it would be a great free webinar thing where I can, you know, help them like learn how to start those conversations.
Yeah. And so you want to have the specific problem that they're searching for and create some content that answers that specific question. Like the first one, what do you put in a VSL? And then you want to broaden that out to a bigger question of, all right, what do you, like, what are the other things you need, right? Because you have more problems around this thing. And so, like, all right, if you pitch, like, yeah, here's what goes, I mean, I think there's a pretty natural corollary. Like, here's what goes in the pitch itself. How do you search for people to pitch? How do you connect with them? How do you, you know, network, etc.? How do you find these people at conventions?
Yeah.
Like the different strategies would be other problems that you could do. And so his sequence of events is what to put in a VSL that's free, ungated content. Then the 5-step process for making a VSL funnel, but not necessarily all of the specifics. So he'll tell you, for instance, he'll tell you, for instance, put out content that people are searching for, and that's how you do it without ads.
Yeah.
Although he also talks about ads, which is nice, as one of the steps of like to accelerate things, because the nice thing about ad spend is you can like scale it up. If you know you need to spend X amount of money to get a client on your ads, then you just spend whatever money you need to get however many calls you need, etc. So so he talks about those things, but he scales that out to the whole funnel. But there's still questions like you don't know, you know, how to find what people are searching for. I imagine is something he's going to offer in his last, you know, product. He's selling an online course, right? So like if you want to know how to do this, and you have our templates, that's another thing I find people sell. I feel like they're overrated because I haven't had a lot of success just like using someone's templates out of the box. I find that people usually have to figure out how to have to practice running ads or whatever it is they're doing until they find the fit for their voice and the value that they offer, and then reaching their clients. So like templates feel overrated, but still like knowing the process of how to specifically find what people are searching for. That's something I've developed and experimented with a lot over a couple of years, figuring out like what is a good market research process. And so, you know, the course might offer that, you know, what best practices for ads, best practices, etc. Like he'll get more, like these are the principles and it is helpful, but it's not all the information you need. And so what you would do is like, you know, if you're going for the business pitch, right? You'd be like, what to put in a business pitch. Then you'd have like, all right, how to get the business pitch, or a bigger thing like where are you going to find these people? How are you going to start the conversation? You know, are you going to find them at a convention? How are you going to start that conversation, etc. Might be the VSL in terms of like the whole process of getting the business pitch. And then what you'd be selling is if you want help with crafting that, right? If you want help finding these people and crafting them, like personalized, you know, feedback, and of course what you can't get from a video, the practice and feedback, right? Then you'd be selling that. And that's kind of how that works, where you're offering people value at each stage and engaging with them a little bit more. So one for free, you know, middle stage for their email, because they've already given your email to get the VSL. And then the offer for your final services.
Nice.
So we'll document the process of creating that the rest of this week. I think there's one other tip that I learned about VSLs, which is I don't think they did this, but they may have, and I've already watched the video, so like the buttons popped up. But there are people who believe that like actually show the video and don't have a CTA right on that page. You time it to
CTA, call to action.
Call to action, yes. Don't have like a button to schedule a call, apply now right on the page. You actually time it so it only appears a certain way into the video, so that people who can't be bothered to watch a minute of your video, who probably aren't serious salespeople, don't clutter up your schedule time. So I thought that was an interesting, actually making the funnel a little bit more difficult, but in order to make sure that the people who are calling are people who are actually watching your video.
Yeah, more quality content.
More quality context. So I thought that was interesting. For the business tip today, the tip is people will pay for simplicity, right? And so this one thing I loved about this funnel, very simple, from someone who knows how to and teaches other people how to create these funnels, that rather than putting a ton of work into like all sorts of long pages and bullet points with like 30 CTAs or 1 CTA for each section, etc., they just have like a very streamlined process. And the idea, like a lot of times people want to reach for complexity. And I saw a great example of this. This was actually a math teacher who was saying like the hardest problems to solve in math are not necessarily complex, right?
Yeah.
So if you have like 1 + 1 and, you know, people can make it more complex by like 1 + 1.5 and 1 + 1.5 over 2, or, you know, add more 1 + 1 + 1, etc., making it more complex. And while that takes a little bit more time to solve as you add that complexity, it's not really difficult. It's not really what people are struggling with. People are often struggling with the simple questions, but on a deep level. And so if you were start to ask, why is 1 + 1 = 2? Like, that gets really strange really fast. And it's the same thing with business, right? You might think you need to offer really fancy solutions, but chances are actually answering a basic thing, but very deeply and very well, right? So like, you know, what you're teaching someone with being able to tell their story, right? The simple process is like, you ask them to tell you about your company and then you provide them feedback, right? It's not a complicated service, but in that service, you are going to have to push them on like, why did they create this company? Why would somebody buy from them? Etc. And so it's like the being pushed on the why is helping somebody go deep on very simple questions that you know, maybe they've been avoiding by just adding bells and whistles. And so keep it simple. People will pay for simplicity, deep answers to simple questions.
All right. Thank you very much.
So until tomorrow, make big changes one small habit at a time.
Bye.
All right. I will awkwardly find my screen.